Wow. Wow. The Mets got Luis Robert. Luis Robert is a New York Met, just been traded from the White Sox to the Mets in exchange for Luisangel Acuña and Truman Pauley. We're going to talk about it. You guys know I have been banging the Luis Robert drum since there was ever a drum to bang in the history of mankind, and he's finally a Met. I know James is pumped. Instant reaction, James, when seeing it. I was driving back from a casino in Puerto Rico in the car with my family, and I went nuts, and they didn't really know how to react because, of course, it's a Luis Robert trade. How would you react?
I mean, reacting is good. Like we've been kind of clamoring for Luis Robert since the trade deadline last year. Mostly for the fact that in terms of cost, we figured it'd be relatively low. I think we were correct about that. We'll talk more about especially Truman Pauley, who was like such a bittersweet moment for me in this trade. But two, like in terms of player archetype, this is exactly what the Mets needed. You want a guy whose floor is an elite defensive center fielder and whose ceiling could still pretty easily be a 4, even a 5-win player. Like he was only 2 full seasons ago. Like this is a shot on ceiling, which we kind of think the Mets roster still probably needed, even after the Bo Bichette move, but still just so unbelievably jacked up to do something like this.
Yeah, no, I saw some people talking about like we already have Tyrone Taylor. Like, why would we go after Luis Robert? Luis Robert would have to get, honestly, a lot worse to be the Tyrone Taylor level even, just because while he hasn't been the greatest hitter over the last few years, still better than Tyrone. And defensively, he's absolutely elite. And he is such an obvious change of scenery guy. He went from being called up in 2020, being a part of that great White Sox team that surprised everybody that year, competing in 2021, and then all of a sudden, again, he looked around and every single person on that team was gone. The ownership's horrible there. They're actively not trying to win. Is it bad attitude to be a guy who maybe phoned it in a little bit? For sure. I don't love that part of it. But at the same time, now that he's in a winning team, winning organization, team that's actively trying to, I shouldn't say winning organization, that's kind of not true at all, but a team that's trying to become a winning organization, I do think that we're just going to get a much better version of him. And that doesn't even really feel very hard for him to do.
No, and even if we get like a 50th percentile outcome for Luis Robert again, I think we're going to get yelled at a lot for saying Robert. I think a lot of people still say Luis Robert, but
it's Robert.
It's you say the name with the accent the way it was meant to be said, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. You probably get a league average hitter, and like you said, one of the better defensive center fielders in the league, which all at the end of the day will wind up being a 2.5 win player on the average, 50th percentile. But again, a lot of what Robert has shown under the hood, even in the last year, where his surface level stats were terrible, it's still a guy that has a lot of the tools that made him, again, someone who 2 years ago was literally an MVP candidate. This was 2 years ago. This is not a very long time ago. Like he has still some of the best bat speed in the league, over 75 miles per hour last season. He had the highest walk rate of his career last year. Like that was always a knock on Luis Robert, that there was the swing decisions were a little bit out of whack. He's gotten those completely under control. Even if you look over the last few years, I love the Seager stat by Robert Orr, Baseball Prospectus. Last season, he was in the 95th percentile of Seager, and Seager is a metric that measures a player's selective aggressiveness and basically which pitches they're swinging at in the zone and which pitches they're taking outside the zone. The only players in the league that had a better swing decisions than Luis Robert were kind of some of the elite guys in the league. He looks like he has all the tools to, again, not only be good, which I think would be a fine outcome, but to be great. And this is an amazing trade, just value proposition wise, to do in a guy like that.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard to convince the people that aren't Luis Robert believers because, again, you can just look at the average and it sometimes starts with a 1.
Bad.
Yeah, you can look at the OPS the last few years, and it's in the 600s for the last couple seasons, which isn't great. But at the same time, like you said, just a few years ago, again, before the White Sox became the worst team in baseball history, he was unbelievable. He was an MVP candidate, and the ceiling is so high. The athleticism is incredible. I think the thing that scares me the most with him is, truthfully, his health.
By far.
That's one thing that doesn't matter if the team is good or bad. Luis Robert's health will be a question all year long. He has had a bunch of injuries, a bunch of nagging injuries, stuff that muscular injuries, sliding, stealing bases, athleticism stuff. But at the same time, like, man, it does feel really, really good to at least, like you said, go out and get a guy that could be a game changer. And Luis Robert in this lineup doesn't even have to be one of the 5 best hitters. If he's our 6th best hitter, 7th best hitter in this lineup, that is a huge, huge improvement.
Well, I was going to say, even if we're building this lineup right now, I think the best case scenario, he can jump up to like the fourth or fifth spot in the order. But like realistically, like he can kind of go into as being a 7 or 8 hitter with
Yeah.
very little pressure on him because there are so many proven bats in this lineup now, especially at the top. Again, after Boba, this happened like an hour after the Bo Bichette news became official too, which is really, really funny.
Yes.
But like it's just kind of an opportunity for him to reinvigorate his own like love for the game because like we saw this last year very specifically with Andrew Vaughn leaving the White Sox and going to the Brewers.
I mean, we saw it with Luis Robert too a little bit. Remember when his name really started getting hot right before the deadline? And before the injury, he was a man on fire. He was playing the best baseball he had in years.
Yeah, literally in years. But again, some players have left the White Sox and not, click back into form immediately. But a guy like Andrew Vaughn walks into Milwaukee, kind of a tweak or two, maybe not even really, but just kind of that jumpiness to get up out of bed in the morning and be in a playoff race and be ready to play ball, being around guys like Francisco Lindor, Bo Bichette, and Juan Soto. Like you're kind of ready to go now. And this to me sort of puts a bow on the Mets starting lineup position player wise, and possibly even the bench, given the way that we now Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos seem like the bench bats. Tyrone Taylor's the fourth outfielder. I'm assuming
And Brett Beatty.
And I'm assuming Carson Bench is in the lineup on opening day, and I'm assuming Brett Beatty's in the starting lineup. Then Terrence is the backup catcher. Like that to me feels like it's kind of wrapped up and signed, sealed, delivered.
Yeah, I guess the only guy that might be in question is the Vientos Mauricio type thing, especially because now, like, Mauricio again becomes a little redundant with Brett Beatty and the fact that Bo Bichette theoretically could play shortstop, second base in a pinch if you need to, if he doesn't play third base. Mauricio's probably the guy that still starts in AAA, but then you have those four guys on the bench. That's a great bench, and it feels a lot better when you have Luis Robert in center. Some kind of combination, again, of Tyrone Taylor and Carson Bench also roaming and being that third/fourth outfield spot. Brett Beatty filling in spots at second, third base, first base, wherever it's going to be. I agree with you. I don't know how much more work is going to be done to this lineup. That being said, I wouldn't put it past David Stearns right now. Sleepy David seems to be woken up since Kyle Tucker said no.
Yeah, making this trade at 11 p.m. David Stearns definitely not sleeping now. This is also a situation with Robert. This is not like trying to revive the late part of a guy's career. Like we're kind of doing a Marcus Semien, and then also like guy like Jorge Polanco that's 31. He's 28 years old. He's going to be 28 years old. Yeah, he's younger than us. He's going to be 28 until after the All-Star break. Like this is still someone in like the epitome of the prime of their career. And again, 2 years ago, like you want to do the normal stats. He had 38 home runs, 20 stolen bases, and the OPS was hovering around 900. No, yeah. It was hovering around 900 with a 130 WRC plus, 5 wins. Like if you want to do the non-surface level stats, like the barrel rate was one of the highest in the league. He had in 2020, he has 218 mile an hour batted balls in his career. Jesus, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's so strong. He's such a freak. La Pantera.
This is just, it's a fun move. And again, there is downside to this. Like Luis Robert's played,
mega downside.
He's played more than 110 games once in his entire career. Like that's downside right there. And also
that was the best season of his career though.
Yeah, that was the only good. Maybe it's just the Blake Snell of hitters. We both love Blake Snell as well. Like he still does strike out a good bit. This past season was a very low strikeout rate for him, 26%, which is a few ticks higher than league average. Again, with that 9% walk rate, but you still could get the 25th percentile outcome here. A guy that's 10% worse than league average at the plate. But even if you do that, that's still someone that's going to be 10% better than Tyrone Taylor as a hitter.
Probably 20% better.
Possibly, and as good of a defender in center field. So this is just, you've upgraded your lineup again. And you didn't really give up a whole hell of a lot to do so.
No, I also love the idea of just Robert being around different people in terms of the coaches. The fact that you're going to have Snicker and you're going to have Jeff Albert being able to make these kind of subtle tweaks to a guy who we know has all the twitchy stuff. I got to imagine for those coaches, this is a fun piece of clay that you can really mold and hopefully turn into a player that's going to be extremely productive for the Mets this season. And hopefully, this is the other kicker too. If Luis Robert is good this year, the Mets have one of the best options that they can pick up in baseball next year at $20 million for the 2027 season.
I also bet this is a move you don't necessarily make unless you have a clear indication from your hitting staff, guys like Snicker, Albert, and Fernandez, like on the bench, the 3 hitting coaches, that you just need to make sure like they see something, they have something, like there's someone's had a connection with this guy in the past where
I mean, if we see it, I'm sure they see it.
But we see it in the way where it's like, oh yeah, this is a great buy low. Like we see this like almost like you'd see a fantasy baseball trade. You know what I mean? Like,
Fair,
the 28-year-old's still ready to rock. But there just has to be something in his setup, his approach, his swing, or maybe they're just seeing these similar underlying stuff that we're seeing where it's like, oh, like this guy actually was you guys don't crash your car here. This guy last year might have been better than he'd been over the last few seasons, process-wise. Like those incredible raw talents and natural abilities got him to the 38-20 season with the 870 OP, 855 OPS 2 years ago. But the fact that the swing decisions ticked up in that significant of a way while the raw power was still there, more selective in the zone. Like this looks kind of like you could get a monster here. Like this could be the X factor, like the absolute the match to throw into the whole set right now. And the downside is still just a better version of Tyrone Taylor.
I'm going to say something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a world where he is worth more value next year than Kyle Tucker.
There is a world where he has
There's a world where he
has a higher WAR than Kyle Tucker and a higher WAR than Cody Bellinger, who kind of it seemed like the smoke was building this evening to the Mets signing.
Now, I'm gonna throw cold water on that immediately and say it's unlikely.
By far the lowest floor out of that trio of guys.
Yes.
Absolutely by far. But also we needed a center fielder so badly. And just you look around the league, like you just did your rankings last month. Center field is a relatively weak position in Major League Baseball. It's kind of become, it's kind of been like this in all of history. Congratulations to Carlos Beltran, got into the Hall of Fame on Tuesday night as well.
Carlos.
Likely going
friend of the channel.
Recurring guest of the Mets'd podcast, Carlos Beltran. Almost a 2-time guest, but for sure a 1-time guest. And then you saw another great center fielder on the field, off the field. Well, I can't believe it, but Andrew Jones gets in the Hall of Fame. Like, it's just not really a position of great appeal right now. Like, besides guys like Julio Rodriguez and Jackson Merrill, who are signed to amazing contracts, and you could throw Michael Harrison, amazing contracts below market value because they signed him to avoid arbitration.
Michael Harris sucked.
Michael Harris, though, is the exact same concept as Luis Robert.
Except he doesn't walk anywhere even to remotely close as much ever.
He's also like 5 years younger than him. So again, but
that's fair.
It's hard to find a real good center fielder. Like it is. Like the Yankees just picked up gave Trent Grisham the qualifying offer. He's probably going to be their center fielder this year. He's nowhere near defensively, and he might not be. Offensively, where Luis Robert is. Like Jung-Hoo Lee, like he's the third highest paid, probably maybe the second highest paid center fielder in baseball this year, behind Trent Grisham. Doesn't have that either. Like it's really hard to find one of these guys, and if you have a chance to get one that has this significant of an upside, like it's just a great time to pull the trigger.
Luis Robert is going to be my City Connect jersey. I can't wait because I have him for the City Connect with the Southside White Sox one. I got to keep it going. Get him a City Connect Mets jersey. Oh, number 88 too. That's going to look fantastic. Can't wait.
There's also a situation for. This is a funny team right now because I don't know if anyone out there has read The Prince by Machiavelli. Like this is a team of mercenaries.
Yeah.
Like we completely and undeniably reconfigured this clubhouse. David Stearns did in a matter of months. It
feels like there's a lot more dog and a lot more edge to this team as opposed to like the kumbaya, everybody's buddy.
And more than anything else, a lot more athleticism, a lot more
so
ball
much
players,
more athletic.
like a lot of guys who are faster, stronger, like a little
Except
bit.
the third baseman, but yeah,
who?
Bo Bichette.
Bo Bichette, he's still. He's guy's a ball player. Like
no, he whips the bat around, but he for sure is not. I don't know if I'd say Bo Bichette is more athletic necessarily, but he's more athletic than Mark Vientos.
I don't know. Get Bo Bichette off that turf at the Rogers Center. Let's see how.
Yeah, maybe that'll help.
But again, like my point is that this is like Bo Bichette is likely here for 1 year for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Like Jorge Polanco is here for 2. Marcus Semien is under contract for 3. If this doesn't work out, he could be here for 1 or 1.5 as well. Like Luis Robert, if he doesn't play well this year or gets a really bad injury, he's probably here for 1. Like I wonder. Like he definitely wants to get that next option picked up because then he can still be a free agent entering his age 29 season. But like there's a lot to play for. It's just it's a funny configuration of players and talents right now because besides for Lindor and Soto, like none of these guys, basically none of these guys are going to be here in 2 years again. Like
and Francisco Alvarez,
and possibly Brett Baty if he doesn't get traded. And again, we're still hoping for Carson Bench. It's just I can't even believe how much different this team looks than on the last game of the season last year.
It's a good thing we don't have a deadline in the offseason.
Thank God people talk about deadlines. It's like, why do you want a deadline? This is fun. I like being excited on Tuesday, January 20th at 11:57 p.m.
It's a thrill being on vacation, having to bring all my stuff with me for the odd chance that some news breaks, and what do you know, at 1 a.m. in Puerto Rico, I'm talking about Luis Robert being traded to the Mets. And now to talk about the other side briefly, we gave. I know Truman Pauley is your guy.
I like Truman Pauley,
but we gave up nothing. That was absolutely nothing for Luis Robert.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, we gave up Luisangel Acuña, who probably could be like a fine super utility guy in Major League Baseball.
Zesty Whit Merrifield.
The take was always true there. And Truman Pauley, he just got drafted, so he's not really on the prospect list yet. But I'm sure by midseason this year, if anything clicks with the White Sox, he's got a great fastball. He's got a cutter and a slider that kind of bridge themselves to each other. I know he's worked on a splitter as well. Like, the fastball shape is extraordinary. Like, it could be like he only sits like 93, 94. But if that velocity ticks up, and he's coming out of Harvard, so I don't know
Smart guy.
I don't know what the pitching development was like at Harvard, but if that velocity ticks up to like 95, 96, 97, you could be looking at like a potential relief demon. But if the best case scenario is like a high end closer and then like a 2-win player, and you've got 1 to 2 years of Luis Robert, and you're trying to make a push to get back to the playoffs and make some noise, like that's just a trade you make every single time. And I still think I'd rather keep Mark Vientos compared to those other guys.
I would rather keep Mark Vientos. To be honest, when I brought up Mark Vientos to trade for Luis Robert last year, it's because I didn't think that they would take Luisangel Acuña. I simply thought Acuña had even less value than Vientos, just simply from the fact of, again, no options. The bat looked about as bad as anybody in Major League Baseball last year. It was one of the worst bats in the entire league. And defensively, while he's fine, he's a good athlete, I don't know, you're going to have like a bad hitting second baseman who's got pretty okay defense at the position. Like that doesn't really play at the major league level right now.
And good point by a tweet I just read from Joe DeMeo. Like, the Mets have really shored up the floor of this roster with the way this offseason's gone so far. Again, notwithstanding the injuries, because now, woof, do we have some injury concerns on this team. But
thank God no Ray Ramirez.
Knock on wood for that one. But just in terms of like what you're probably going to get at the plate between Lindor, Soto, Bichette, even include Jorge Polanco and Marcus Semien, who I still think at worst are league average players. I'm still crossing my fingers those last 2 months of Marcus Semien stick. Like, just throw a piece of dynamite into this thing. Let's get some action.
Yeah, it's fun that like a guy who might hit seventh, maybe he hits higher in the lineup, who knows? But like a guy who's hitting seventh,
fifth,
eighth, ninth in this lineup does have the ability and the feel of someone who could change the game at any point. Where guys that were hitting 7th, 8th, and 9th last year were like Jared Young, Luisangel Acuña, kind of just guys that didn't instill any fear into anybody. Luis Robert, even when he stinks, still has the ability to put one out 450 feet at any moment.
And again, just to buy an elite defensive center fielder is hard. Like, it's really
Impossible.
difficult to find these guys. Like, how many of them even exist in the league right now? It's even sort by OAA last season. Like,
I think it also tells you what they think about Luis Robert compared to the rest of that center field market. Guys like Harrison Bader, who we know is a great defensive center fielder, had a good bat last year, but the Mets felt more comfortable paying Luis Robert $20 million, getting rid of 2 assets, than even bringing back a guy like Harrison Bader.
Definitely. And even again, just to look at the outs above average for all center fielders last year, outs above average, imperfect metric, but a great determining factor of how good
and
these
definitely
center
the best for
fielders are.
outfield.
Yeah, definitely best that we have access to as people in the public. PCA, Ceddanne Rafaela, those are by far, I think, the best 2 defensive outfielders in the league. And then you have the defensive specialists who just simply can't hit. Victor Scott second, Jacob Young, Denzel Clark, Kyle Isbell. If you combine those 4 OPSs, you're getting near 2,300. Then you have Julio Rodriguez, who's probably a top 5 overall player in the game, top 7. Bryce Teodosio, I didn't realize was that nice in the outfield.
And it was in such a few amount of games. Also, Denzel Clark, I think, played like 40 games too at that OA.
Yeah, he's that good.
Bryce, where Denzel Clark has the exit velo stuff that gets you excited, Bryce Teodosio's got negative nothing.
Then after them, again, this is the tier we get to now. Jake Myers, who I'm sure the Mets were absolutely going for if this Robert trade didn't come to fruition tonight. Or at least the same. Dalton Varsho, your boy, Michael Harris the second, and then Robert. And Robert was in the same tier as Miles Straw, Brenton Doyle, Andy Pages, and then ahead of Harrison Bader. Like,
and if Luis Robert becomes Andy Pages, oh my God, what this team would become.
I mean, Andy Pages was like a 4.5 win player last year. I
know, that's what I'm saying.
I think we got stuck with how Andy Pages looked in the World Series, but he's probably still very good. I think the floor on Luis Robert, is the big takeaway from this, is significantly higher than the public perceives, and I think the ceiling is still an all-star.
Yeah, the ceiling is all-star, and being able to put that into your lineup is something that could completely change this Mets season, and I love this move. Start to finish, absolute masterclass by old Dumpster Dave there.
And what probably a big part of this was, and this is what you're able to do with, Dumpster Dave, guys don't like spending any money. Perka and Rosendahl, the Mets are taking on Robert's entire $20 million salary.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Money don't matter.
Great. But that's what you should be doing when you have this kind of advantage. And you can trade, and especially trading a guy like Luisangel Acuña right now. I bet there was a conversation about non-tendering him when this offseason began, truthfully.
There's had to be a conversation about non-tendering him, and there was also a conversation of, does he even make it out of spring training with this team? The fact that he has no options means he has to start the year on the major league team. If he doesn't, he gets DFA'd, he's going through waivers, and then you're going to lose him. So being able to flip a guy who, relatively speaking, doesn't have value to 28 of 30 teams in Major League Baseball right now for a guy who could be a game changer is incredible. Like, Truman Pauley is the true beast, probably.
100% the true beat. I think Truman Pauley was kind of like making waves around the pitching circles. Like, oh, this guy could be the next Mets riser this year. I think last year.
And for the White Sox, they go, we get rid of $20 million. We get rid of a guy who stunk for us the last few years.
Didn't seem like he wanted to be here very badly.
Yeah, definitely didn't want to be there. And now we get a guy who maybe becomes a high leverage reliever at one point, and a middle infielder who will play Major League Baseball for us this year.
And again, Truman Pauley has enough pitches to get to starting caliber. His command grades will have to really jump up a few rungs to get there, but this is just, you make this trade every time. There's also probably a conversation in the Mets world where you look around, you're like, all right, this by the end of this season, if Jet Williams is not traded, he has to be added to the 40-man roster anyway.
Yeah.
At some point mid-season, if like we sign now some veteran infield depth, Jet Williams just happens to get that shot. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure a guy like Wyatt Young, who was Rule 5 eligible this year, got through the Rule 5 draft. Like, he could play defensively around the infield. He's a left-handed bat. Like, you could probably
I don't know how much worse he is than Luisangel Acuña.
Luisangel Acuña, I think, is definitely significantly better defender. And now we're this Wyatt Young time at 12:04 the Mets'd podcast. But like, you probably just had some guys in the system that it's time. I mean, we just signed Sung-Chae Chang this week. I think he can actually mix in.
Who?
Sung-Chae Chang.
What are you talking about?
He came from the Pirate system. I think he was
Is he Taiwanese?
I think he was in the Tiger system before that. No, it was just the Pirate system. I don't know.
I think you're thinking of Hae-Yu Lee.
Yeah, I was thinking of Hae-Yu Lee, but he would. Sung-Chae Chang was Taiwanese, but he had a couple like
this is crazy.
He had a couple decent moments in the Pirate system. Like, he could just play around the diamond. Like
we got Ji-Wan Bae.
I mean, I don't really want to see that guy in the league, but
That's
like
fair.
Che Chang he's got big time speed, and he could definitely handle middle infield defensively. So again, like, you have options to be this kind of Luis Guillorme type player, to be the backup infielder around. And Luisangel Acuña is a great defender. I think he could be a good defender in the league, second baseman at least, maybe, for sure. Yeah. He booted the ball in the Venezuela Winter League in center field this past week, where he's also just is hitting like Barry Bonds. But like, he's not a player that you are upset about giving up on the 26-man roster, especially with no options.
There's just no room for him. There's no room for him on this Mets team. Let's see what Ronnie Mauricio's got, because we also got to figure out what he's got too, considering this is the last year with an option for him. We'll see. We'll figure it out, but boy, oh boy, am I excited. Again,
Pumped.
Apologies for maybe not being as giddy as I could be. It is late, and this apartment is small that I'm sharing with my family, so I'm not trying to keep them awake by screaming, but I'm pumped. In the car again, I let out a let's fucking go. We got Luis Robert, and everybody in the car was like, okay.
Sure,
really
guy.
Sure. Yeah, man, all right.
Relax, big man. But it's just, I mean, this is just fun. And again, like, it's like the White Sox just definitely didn't want to pay that money, which we kind of knew the whole time going back to the trade deadline. They probably overplayed their hand by not moving him last year at the trade deadline, and just didn't want to go into the season with those $20 million in their books. That's perfect.
And now he's a New York Met. Can't wait. Guys, that's the episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to Mets'd Up over on YouTube if you have not yet done so. If you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download and subscribe. You can follow James on social media at
James Shiano.
I'm Giraffe Neck Mark. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out. Let's go
Peace
Mets.
out, guys. Let's go Mets.